How's it going, guys? It's your old pal Tony. I'm back again to talk about some anime. Now, if you read the title of this video, which I'm assuming you probably did, you might be thinking, overrated? My favorite show's not overrated. Well, you might be right. By overrated, I pretty much just mean shows that I've heard about before. I'm really not plugged into modern anime, like, at all. For a little background, I grew up watching anime for, like, pretty much my whole life. It started with, like, Saturday morning Kids WB stuff, like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And the 4Kids dub of One Piece. And then eventually, as I got a little older, I got into things like Yu Yu Hakusho and Inuyasha, and especially Full Metal Alchemist. I own the entire FMA manga collection. I have like a giant wall hanging scroll in my bedroom of FMA Brotherhood. I'm caught up on the One Piece manga. I read it every week. But really, aside from One Piece, I'm not up to date on any other anime or manga. Somewhere along the way, I don't know if it was my age or what, but my interest in anime kind of started to dwindle. I kind of remember around the time that like One Punch Man and My Hero Academia were coming out. I don't know, something about those shows, or maybe it's just me. I kind of just dropped off with it. So I figured, you know what? It's time to jump into some modern anime. Check out some of these shows I keep hearing about. Are they overrated? Maybe they're good. Let's find out together. So I picked 5 shows that I had never seen and pretty much knew nothing about, which really wasn't hard because, like I said, I haven't watched anime in years. Like I said, I don't know really how overrated, if at all, these shows are. I really just kind of picked ones that I had heard about before. So the 5 shows are Jujutsu Kaisen, Dandadan, Chainsaw Man, That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, and Solo Leveling. I'm only going to watch the first episode of these shows, which I know is maybe not the best intro to the shows. I know some people say you gotta watch 3 episodes or whatever to get into it. But I just figured, you know what? I'm kind of just gonna rank these shows mostly based on vibes anyway. So we're just gonna watch 1 episode and see if it pulls me in. Obviously, I'm not like the arbiter of what a good show is. So I'm pretty much just ranking these based on how much I like them. So feel free to disagree with me in the comments. I'm gonna give each show a rating 1 to 10. Like I said, mostly just based on vibes and how much I liked it. And I'm going to say whether I would watch it or drop it. So did the show pull me in? Do I want to watch more of it or not? Would I rather just drop it? Alright, let's jump into these shows, see how they are. Starting out with JJK. So first of all, I'll go over what I know about these shows, which for JJK, as with pretty much all of these shows, is mostly nothing. I've seen the like protagonist for this show before. He kind of reminds me of like a pink Ichigo from Bleach, or like Natsu from Fairy Tail mixed with Ichigo. And I've seen the like hand with the mouth on it. I think that's this show. But other than that, I really don't know anything. So the show starts out with these 2 guys like in a room full of strange demonic seals. One guy's got the other guy like chained up and sealed up. He like says his full name and the other guy's full name. The guy who's doing most of the talking is Satoru Gojo, and the guy who's chained up is Yuji Itadori. One of the first things this Gojo guy says, if not the first thing, is, which one are you? So I guess this Itadori guy has some kind of like multiple personalities thing going on. Like I said, there's a bunch of seals and like candles lit and shit, so it looks like there's some kind of like demonic ritual going on, which if I had to guess is probably the Gojo guy trying to exorcise whatever demon is inside of this Itadori guy. Gojo says, it's been decided that you are to be secretly executed. And then the intro drops. So I guess this is like the hook for the show. The Gojo guy said something about Jujutsu High, which kind of caught me off guard. I don't know what I thought Jujutsu was, but I definitely did not think it was a high school. But this is a shonen anime. That's just what they're like, I guess. This guy looks 40, but that's fine. So let's talk about the intro song. What's an anime without a bunch of sick intros? So I hadn't heard this one before. It's pretty sick, dude. I was tapping my toes. It's kind of just like a classic anime intro where they show a bunch of characters that I don't know yet. There's like an epic breakdown part midway through, as an anime intro should. I remember liking the animation. I also really like the way that it starts out with this like little percussion sound and Itadori waking up. And then at the end of the intro, it kind of like plays in reverse where he falls asleep. I thought that was cool. So yeah, banger. Slaps. Classic anime intro. But yeah, it's starting out pretty cool. Like I said, it's a little shonen-y. Gojo said something about being like the top of the first years at Jujutsu High or something. It's a little corny for me, but honestly, like a 12-year-old me probably would have thought it was awesome. Anyway, going back to the episode. We see Itadori's calling a hospital to talk to his grandfather to set up that that's an important thing for him. Some Sasuke-looking guy shows up. He's got like Sasuke hair and a Sasuke collar. You gotta expect most shonen animes are gonna have a Sasuke in them. So he's at this school looking for some kind of cursed object, he says, but it's not there. We cut to something called the Occult Phenomenon Research Club, which I guess is like a school club consisting of the guy from before, Itadori, and these two other characters, a girl named Sasaki and a guy named Iguchi. They're all in there doing some kind of like Ouija board stuff and kind of like clowning around. This adult who's like they say is the president. I don't know if he's like the president of the clubs or school or something. He's like a teacher. He's trying to kick out the Occult Phenomenon Research Club because they don't have like any real activities. As we saw, they just like play with a Ouija board and goof around. The girl Sasaki spins some yarn about how like the rugby team at the school all got sick because of some ghostly curse. But this president guy is like, no, it's just ticks. They got bit by ticks. But Itadori's like, okay, sure, maybe it wasn't ghosts, but we did write a report, which counts as an activity. And the president's like, yeah, okay, maybe, but you're also registered for the track and field club. So they don't even have enough members to be a group. And Itadori's not even really supposed to be there. Itadori says he didn't sign up for the track and field club, and some guy, like the gym teacher, I guess, shows up, and he's like, yeah, I signed you up. We need more members. This gym coach guy's kind of a piece of work. So the gym coach guy challenges Itadori to a race to, I guess, get out of being on the track team. But it feels a lot like the tutorial level in a video game where this guy's like about to teach us how the controls work. So we see the Sasuke guy from before is on the rugby field, probably the cursed rugby field with the ticks. And there's like some weird monster like swimming through the ground like Senor Pink from One Piece. Sasuke says it's a high level cursed spirit, which I guess is like unusual. He says it's there because of the cursed object that's here, or isn't here. I don't know. I thought it wasn't here. I thought he looked and it wasn't here. He's like still sniffing out this cursed object because I guess it's like extra powerful. Right then, Sasuke overhears this kid announce the race between Itadori and the gym coach. Like this is like the event of the century or something. He yells something about Itadori being from West Middle, so he's not even in high school. What's this kid, like 9 years old? He kind of looks like a grown man. So everybody's like hyping up Itadori like he's some kind of like goated legend. They say he beat something called Ninja Warrior and that he's the reincarnation of some other guy who I've never heard of, who also apparently isn't even dead. None of what they're saying here makes any sense to me. So they do like a shot put challenge where they gotta throw a ball. And Itadori, who has never done this before, just fucking shoots the thing like a cannonball. It like leaves a crater in a goalpost. It's like steaming. I don't know, dude. That seems a little bit more like some demonic power than just being like a talented kid. They say he shattered like every world record in history or something. We find out apparently Itadori only really joined the occult club because he's like lazy and he wants to leave school by a certain time. The other occult club members are like, you don't have to stay for us. But Itadori's like, nah, it's cool. I like it, I guess. Also, I want to be home by 6. Sasuke saw Itadori's like insanely goated shot put throw, so he's like, man, this guy's awesome. Itadori pieces out of there, and when he runs past Sasuke, he senses the cursed object on him, and he goes to follow him, but Itadori's still like the most insane goat ever, so he's just fucking out of there like a Looney Tunes character. It turns out Itadori's not a slacker, he actually just loves his grandpa. And apparently the reason he wants to leave school early is so he can go visit his grandfather in the hospital. Itadori's talking to his grandfather, and a while later, the grandpa says like some ominous shit like, hey man, just save who you can. Don't feel too bad. Just like some weird ominous shit about saving the world, and then he just dies. A little while later, Sasuke shows up at the hospital while Itadori's talking to somebody like making arrangements for his grandfather. We find out Sasuke's name is Fushiguro, and apparently he's another student from Jujutsu High, which is not that surprising. So Fushiguro talks to Itadori and he asks him to give him the cursed object. Itadori's like, what? Oh yeah, that thing? Yeah, I found that. Why, is it bad or something? And Fushiguro gives us like a lore dump about how most of the unexplained deaths in Japan are caused by curses. He says large pools of negative energy form in places like schools and hospitals because they're full of like negative emotions. And somehow that makes curses form, I guess. I don't know. It was a little silly for me, but let's go with it. He says most schools secretly keep a cursed object that somehow protects them from more curses. I guess I gotta like fight fire with fire. So basically the object's just like so evil that it keeps other evil things away. which kind of seems like it might be an issue. And it is. Apparently, over time, the seals that, like, I guess, contain these cursed objects wear down, and they actually start to attract and strengthen the same curses that they're supposed to repel. I don't know, man. It seems like kind of a flawed system. I think maybe somebody might want to go back to the drawing board on that one. So Itadori's like, whatever, man. I don't even have the thing, but here's the box it was in. And I guess this thing was like so cursed that even the just like traces of dark energy on the box were enough for Fushiguro to sense it, which I think is how he was able to follow Itadori. So now Fushiguro's like, fuck, bro, I gotta find that thing, like, now. Itadori just casually says that his friends have it, and he's like, oh yeah, now that you mention it, they were saying that they were gonna open it up, like, right now. Why, is that bad? Should they not do that? Fushiguro's like, ah, dude, your friends are fucked. We see Sasaki and Iguchi, the other two occult club members, snuck into the occult club room and are trying to open the cursed object. The girl Sasaki unravels this thing like a mummy wrap and reveals that it's like a crazy looking mummified witch finger. Honestly, I was kind of gagged. I was like, whoa, it's a fucking finger in there? I gotta be honest, this thing does look pretty evil. Sasaki and Iguchi were doing this by candlelight for the vibes, I guess, and the candles suddenly go out, and there's just like a loud bang. All of a sudden, some kind of crazy, like, goop monster just starts like crawling out of the wall. Fushiguro and Itadori show up at the building, and there's like some kind of force field thing outside, I think. Fushiguro tells Itadori to wait outside, which I'm sure he'll just do. So inside the building, Sasuke's hiding, and Iguchi's already like getting his head munched by some goopy demon. Some creepy monsters walking around like saying shit. Fushiguro does like a Yusuke Urameshi spirit gun hand sign thing. I thought he was gonna like blast the monster with a laser or something, but he summons like some wolves to eat them, which is not a laser, but it is still pretty cool. Itadori's still waiting outside the building, and he's kind of beating himself up. He's like, why am I such a pussy, dude? Why won't I go in there? He's like confused why he's scared of death for some reason. I mean, I guess this kid's like 10 years old, so he doesn't know, but most people are not looking forward to it. The monsters are really like groping up Sasaki. It kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't really expecting it to be horny at all. Felt a little out of left field, but I guess again, this is kind of just what shonen is like. There's like some hype music playing while Itadori's outside thinking about going in, which is pretty dope. It's getting pretty dire inside. Fushiguro isn't able to stop the monster in time, and it's pretty much about to like gobble up the occult club. But right then, Itadori does like an epic spin kick through the window, kicks the demon, and saves both the occult club members at one time. Then I don't really know exactly what happened, but I think Fushiguro did some kind of spirit blast and blast the demons. And then his wolves go and just like gobble up the bits of monster parts. Fushiguro reveals that the finger belonged to some guy named Ryomen Sukuna, and if you eat it, gross, you gain stronger cursed energy. Itadori's about to hand it to Fushiguro when a giant demon hand comes through the ceiling, and I think it's the demon that Fushiguro saw at the rugby field. It yeets Fushiguro and his wolves just like melt. Fushiguro tells Itadori to run, but he stays and fights. Again, things are looking pretty dire. Itadori's like about to get gobbled up by this monster. He drops the cursed finger, but he catches it in his teeth, and outmatched and out of options, he just gulps down the finger. Fushiguro says there's like a 1 in a million chance that this doesn't kill Itadori, but unsurprisingly, the protagonist of the show does not die. And then Itadori just like decimates the monster with a single swipe of a clawed hand. When the dust settles, we see Itadori has like face tattoos now. He sprouts like a second pair of demonic eyes under his eyes. He tears his clothes off like some kind of animal, and he's covered in more of the demonic tattoos. Fushiguro's like, oh fuck, this is bad. Itadori's evidently like fully possessed by this Ryomen Sukuna guy. And I gotta say, this is a bad guy. He's immediately like, oh, I'm bored of killing demons. Where are the people? He asks, where are the women? And I went, alright, Ralph. So he says he wants to like massacre all the women and children, but all of a sudden he like grabs himself by the face. And this whole time while he was possessed, it was like a different guy's voice coming out of him, but Itadori's voice comes out, and he's like, hey man, what are you doing? Give me my body back. Meanwhile, Fushiguro's like, yeah, so I'm gonna have to execute you now. Cause you're like a super evil demon. And I don't blame him. And the episode ends. So final thoughts. It's pretty good, man. I liked it. The animation was good, the music was good, it was pretty hype. The characters kind of sounded like they were all 40, but the actual voice acting performances were pretty good. The characters all seem pretty cool to me. Their powers are pretty cool, like the wolves and stuff. I gotta give it like a solid 8 out of 10. I liked it. Like I said at the beginning, a younger me probably would have been like obsessed with this show. All the stuff that I thought was a little corny or weird now probably would have either not bothered me as a kid or I would have actually loved it. But yeah, it's a little shonen-y. So, watch it or drop it. Watch it. I think I might actually watch more of this show pretty soon. I'm kind of curious to know more. Alright, next up, Don Da Don. So what do I know about this show? Also pretty much nothing. I've heard the intro song slaps. I think that's really it. So let's talk about the intro. Happy to report, it does slap. The animation in the intro is super sick. The colors are awesome. The song is a banger. I mean, I don't know how you could listen to the song and not think it's a banger. There's even some like CGI shots in the intro, which usually bothers me, but they were actually pretty well used here. Same thing as JJK, the intro shows a whole bunch of characters that I don't know yet. And I love the little dance that the girl does in the intro. It's like a couple frames long. It's just her doing like a little wiggle, and I love it. I wrote in my notes that the kid looks like a dork, which, yeah, he pretty much does. So let's jump into the actual show. One of the first things I wrote was that the voice acting and animation were strange, which they kind of are. But I think I like it. It starts out with this dude who's just like a straight up menace talking to this girl. She's sick of him being like a predator or whatever, so she just like throws down with him and she goes to like kick him in the head. Oh no, not a great situation all around. Apparently this guy was her boyfriend, not just like some random criminal on the street. So we see the girl in school with her friends. She says she just liked that guy because he looked like some other guy, Ken Takakura, who they don't stop to clarify who that is. The girl's like crying about wanting a boyfriend. I kind of thought this was a little cringe. We see some kids bullying that nerdy kid from the intro. The girl, I guess, doesn't like that, so she goes and sits between the kid and the bullies, and they stop. But she doesn't stay to hang out with the guy, she just bails. They keep doing this thing where they draw their face in a different style, which I guess is kind of like a common thing in anime, right? Like to draw their face in sort of like a more exaggerated cartoony way. But the way it's done here was really interesting to me because it's not like super different from the regular art style. It's pretty subtle. And again, it was strange to me at first, but I think I kind of like it. So the dork that was getting bullied comes to talk to the girl. He says that he thinks she was talking to him because she saw that he was reading about aliens. And he's like, oh, dude, you obviously want to talk about aliens. And she's like, no, aliens are lame and fake. The kid's being kind of like a little psycho about paranormal stuff like aliens. The girl kind of tears into him, I guess because she's upset about boys or her boyfriend or whatever. But then she kind of feels bad for teeing off on the kid, so she says that she doesn't believe in aliens, but she does believe in ghosts. But the nerdy kid just laughs in her face. He's like, ghosts? What are you, stupid? The girl says her grandma is a medium. Honestly, these two are both kind of like little freaks. But I like them. The girl's friends from before walk up, and they're like, oh, I guess she gave up on whoever that Ken Takakura guy was. Because obviously now she's into this nerd. I want to point out the voice acting for the friends is pretty interesting to me. They sound a lot like real American teenagers, or at least like an adult actor doing an impression of a real American teenager, which I assume was like a creative choice to make them sound more natural. And I think it works. So the girl dares the dork to go to a haunted place, and he dares her to go somewhere where there might be aliens. If one of them sees them, then they have to be the other's gopher, which I do not understand the meaning of, and I don't think they ever explain it. I guess just like they're bitch. So next thing, the girl's in this like creepy ass hospital. She's always walking around with like a wide ass stance. I think this is some kind of Japanese cultural thing they're showing about this character, but I kind of like it. It adds to her personality. She's a little quirky. I kind of figured that this was the haunted place until I saw the girl, but she's like on the phone with the nerd, and he says if she goes to the roof, she's bound to get abducted. He says that he thinks he's been abducted, but he doesn't know because they would like wipe your memory. He's just making shit up. So the nerd is at this very creepy tunnel. He's yelling out some kind of chant. The girl admits that she's never seen a ghost either. She gives some like background story about how her parents died, and so her grandma, who she mentioned was a medium, had to raise her. And so her grandma made her do this weird like ritual pose thing to, I guess, protect her from ghosts, where she just like puts her finger on her head, and everybody made fun of her for that. Which apparently was fine until she says the boys she liked made fun of her. Because, again, I guess this girl's whole entire personality is boys. She got mad at her grandma for getting made fun of, but apparently she was really just mad that people were making fun of her grandma, so she got mad at her grandma for that. I don't know, she's a kid, I guess. She says she actually thought it was cool that her grandma's a medium, and she basically chooses to believe that it's all real because she respects her grandma for taking her in. She asks him to explain why he believes in aliens, and he's just like, why do I need a reason? They're just fucking cool, dude. I noticed that neither of them have been given a name yet, and I guess they don't know each other's names either, because she calls the nerd Occult Coon, which is probably the most awkward dub choice they've done so far. In the tunnel, the nerdy kid sees some bloody footprints on the ground, which is insanely cursed. And he turns around and we get jump scared by this like decrepit old lady. She says some things that I think I'm not going to repeat here. Um I was really caught off guard by this whole interaction, but it was also very funny and creepy and just weird. Honestly, at the risk of this being kind of unclear, I would say if you want to know what weird shit this witch ghost lady says to the kid, maybe just check out the episode because it's pretty funny. So the whole time I was like, what in the hell? So the kid books it out of there. The girl says that he shouldn't run because if the ghost catches him, it'll put a curse on him, but it's kind of too late for that. He's just screaming and running, getting chased, and the phone cuts out. So the girl's like, oh, fuck, I guess I gotta go save him. So I was like, I'm guessing it's time for the aliens to show up now that she needs to go rescue that guy. And boom, right then, a bunch of lights just start like cutting out one by one. And brother, what the fuck? There's like these three identical looking creeps at the end of the hall staring back at the girl. They look like weird people with like stretched faces. The girl books it out of there. They chase her, and we're two for two on these shows being unexpectedly very horny. They just like tear her clothes off. I don't know. I guess this is just anime, and I just haven't watched any in a while. I'm recording this on New Year's Day, and I think there's an actual parade going on outside my house. So the first thing I wrote in my notes about this next scene is just, Jesus Christ. Because the next thing we see is the girl strapped to a chair in her underwear with like her legs spread. And she's surrounded by those creepy stretched skin aliens from before. She asks where her clothes are, and they say they handled her stuff with care, and they show there's just like a pile of shredded fabric, which was one little bit of levity in an otherwise kind of dark scene. So one of the aliens goes on to say that their species is all male. And again, in my notes, I wrote, oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. So while he's saying some stuff about having to breed, and I kind of thought it wasn't going to get any worse, one of these aliens whips out what I can only describe as a robot penis. And I don't know, man, this whole scene is a lot. They start hypnotizing her to make her, in their words, aroused. And it just keeps getting worse from here. The robo dick opens up and there's like a sharp object that comes out of it. I don't know. If this kind of thing upsets you, you're probably not gonna like this scene. It is animated kind of nicely. So I had been mostly enjoying this show, but I was like kind of at my limit here. And right then the phone rings and the aliens stop what they're doing. All of a sudden, a leg comes out of the phone and like fucking kicks the alien. And I was like, what the hell? Then an arm comes out of the phone, and the fucking horny witch ghost from before climbs out of the phone. She like bites an alien in the dick and throws it into the wall. And we see that the witch ghost is like fused with the nerdy kid. He says some shit I couldn't understand about the curse, and I was like, what in the fucking shit is going on? The alien mentions that even they don't have the technology to teleport through phones, so obviously this is some kind of occult witchcraft shit. The witch takes over the nerd completely and just starts attacking these aliens, which, good, they deserve it. An alien rips off its skin, and I was right about it looking stretched, because it's just like a fucked up human suit that they're wearing. They're actually like these weird Ojama looking snail creatures, and the aliens and the ghost fight for a while. The aliens have some kind of weird psychokinesis powers. They keep referring to dicks as bananas, which I think is supposed to be like a quirky, silly little thing that these aliens do. But I don't think it's cute. I hate these aliens, dude. The ghost is just destroying them. But one of the aliens smashes the ghost into the wall, and the nerd is able to like regain some control. He starts yelling at the alien about how they never cared about him, like he was abandoned by aliens, because he's so obsessed with aliens and he never got to see one. He's like, I don't have any friends. Everyone bullies me because I'm so obsessed with aliens, and you won't even say hi. And now you show up and you try and like sexually assault this girl who's my friend now. Not very cool. So he decides, I guess, that he's obsessed with this girl now instead of aliens, because she's the only person who's ever stood up for him. So he lets the ghost regain control and take over so that he can defend her. But he gets blasted by one of the aliens, and he's immediately just like, never mind. So the aliens come back in trying to do some creep assault on the girl again. She's like heaving in the chair. I think they could dial this back like 25%, at least. A little too horny. A little too horny and not very good timing. So they start to hypnotize her again, and she has like a flashback to her grandma. Her grandma is telling her to release her chi by using that like stance that she got made fun of for. So she like taps into whatever this spiritual force is, and she just like epically shatters the whole chair with some kind of chi mind powers. Next thing we know, she's just like kind of floating in space, glowing green. It looks pretty awesome. She kicks the alien just like she tried to do to the guy at the beginning, except this time it just fucking yeets the alien right outside of whatever it is that they're in. I will say it's a little strange the way she just like chose to get powers when she needed them. But whatever, it's fine. Looks cool. And it saved the girl from a terrible situation, so I'm not complaining. So we see that they were inside of what appears to be some kind of like giant glowing orb. I don't know if it's supposed to look like the moon or what, but this was just like a cloaking device apparently, and they're actually just inside of a UFO. When the alien gets shot through the wall, I guess it broke the cloaking device. The nerd still has zero control over the ghostly possession, so he actually attacks the girl. But she somehow psychically blasts him and like exorcises the demon out of him. But in like a ghostly form, the ghost says she still has some kind of hold on the kid. And I guess she stole his dick. I don't I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, she disappears. And before she leaves, she tells the girl to come find her in the tunnel, like if she wants to get the smoke, I guess. So the UFO starts like crash landing to the ground, but I guess they're fine. The girl carries the nerd out of the UFO in her underwear like she's fucking Sigourney Weaver and Alien. So they're both like, well, I guess we both believe in ghosts and aliens now. The girl's wearing what I think is the guy's jacket, which was kind of cute, but she's still fully in her underwear. The nerd like strips out of his clothes to give them to her because he feels bad. I think he's still wearing underwear, but maybe he's just like walking around dickless, like smooth like a Ken doll. He says he doesn't want her help, but she insists, and she gives him his clothes back. These two are kind of cute. I don't hate it, you know? But he still doesn't want to take his clothes back. He wants her to wear them because he's like nervous or something. And he busts out some line that the girl says, I guess, is a line from that guy she likes that she talked about at the beginning. This Ken Takakura guy. And I was very confused by this. I had no idea who Ken Takakura was, and they do not explain it. So my best guess was like maybe this is some kind of like old movie star or movie character by the way they talk about like quoting lines from him. And the girls at the beginning said something about how they don't like make guys like that anymore. So my best guess was like an old-timey movie star. But I don't really know what the significance of him saying one of that guy's lines would be. But she's shook by it. So she finally asks the nerd his name, and he says it's Ken Takakura, literally the name of that guy. So now I was even more confused. I thought maybe he was supposed to be like a reincarnation of this guy, but he has the same name as him. I don't think that's how reincarnation works. Did he just make this up? Like, did he just take one of the lines and pretend to be this guy because he knows she likes it? I don't know. The UFO just like explodes behind them. And that's it. That's the end of the episode. So, final thoughts. There's another pretty good one. I liked it for the most part. I also kind of don't really know what's going on. And the scene with the aliens was a little much for me. The show is clearly really well made. The voice acting was really strong. The animation looks really good. I think I'm going to give this one another 8 out of 10 or 7.5, minus half a point because it's a little too horny. So I did look into the Ken Takakura thing a little bit just because I was so confused. And I started to think maybe this is a real life person that Japanese people would know. And from what I can tell, that is the case. I believe this is a Japanese actor who Japanese audiences would be familiar with. So thank you to the dub for choosing not to clarify that at all. Without spoiling too much, if you can explain why I didn't get this and if that's normal, maybe leave a comment. Tell me what the heck that was. So, watch it or drop it. Watch it. It took me a little while to watch all these shows, and this whole time I've been actually kind of excited to watch more of this show. Not only would I watch more, I think I'm going to. So yeah, it's a good one. I liked it. Next up, Chainsaw Man. What do I know about Chainsaw Man? Actually a little bit more than the other two. I know there's like a chainsaw man, like a guy with like a chainsaw head. And I think there's also like a little creature, like a little orange creature who also has a chainsaw on his head. And I think I know that little creature's name is Pochita because I see like merch of him and stuff all over the place. And I think maybe there's like some kaiju in it or something, like monsters. And maybe Chainsaw Man's like an anti-hero. I also think I maybe seen one of the girls from this show before, but I don't really know. Alright, jumping into the show. So it starts out in like a very CG alleyway, which I really did not like. Right off the bat, didn't like the animation. Then it cuts to some guy's bedroom. The dude walks through the woods and is just like walking in the street. He says how he like cuts trees for money, I guess because he's like a chainsaw man. And he mentions he's sold a bunch of his own body parts for money, like a kidney and an eyeball and one of his nuts. He's got like an eye patch on because he sold his eyeball, I guess. When he said the thing about selling one of his nuts, I was like, okay, right away with the sexual stuff. I'm assuming the show's going to be plenty horny. So he owes a bunch of money that he's trying to pay off. We see the little orange creature. I was right. His name is Pochita. The main guy says something like, oh, you want to go kill something? To the little Pochita. And I was immediately like, I don't know, this guy's a little edgy. I don't know if I like him. Even this cute little dog thing's a little edgy. He's talking about hunting something called devils, which he's doing for money to pay off his debt. We see this weird, like, eyeball covered tomato monster thing, and he picks up Pochita and, like, revs him like a chainsaw. And then we see the intro. It's a little funky. It's not bad, you know? A whole bunch of characters. Some that I think I recognize. Some that I think I thought were the same character. The one guy's like polishing a bowling ball like the guy from The Big Lebowski, which I thought was kind of corny. And then they immediately show a girl bent over and they like zoom in on her cleavage. I don't know, dude. I don't think this show's gonna be for me. Alright, getting back into the show. So we see he chopped up that tomato monster. Some old guy shows up and offers him money. The main guy, the chainsaw man, I presume, his name is Denji. The old guy subtracts the debt and like a bunch of fees from the money, and Denji's left with like barely anything. And this dude's broke as hell. He literally says he's gonna split a slice of bread with Pochita for dinner. The old guy says he employs Denji because it makes sure that Denji pays his debt, which was actually accrued by his dad, who sounds like kind of a loser. We also find out that this old guy is from the Yakuza. He says he needs sketchy people like Denji because like a legit devil hunter would not sell the bodies to the Yakuza. He's kind of a dick talking about Denji. He's like basically saying that he's like a loyal dog. The old guy's driving in a car with this other guy and they pull up next to Denji and the driver offers Denji money to eat his cigarette because he's just like a genuine scumbag, I guess. So of course Denji, who's like broke as hell, just does it. But then when they drive away, he coughs it out like Spike Spiegel. Back at home, Denji's like crying about how he's got no bitches. It's classic. And we get a flashback. We see young Denji at his dad's grave. The guy from the Yakuza tells Denji that he wants his money by tomorrow or he'll chop him up. So just immediately with the debt. Right then, Denji also meets Pochita, and we find out that Pochita himself is actually one of these devils. Pochita's hurt and bleeding like profusely, so Denji lets Pochita bite him because he's heard that like human blood heals demons. But he also tells Pochita that this is a contract and that he'll have to return the favor someday. There's another quick scene of Denji asking the Yakuza guy to hire him as a demon hunter so he can pay off his debt. And I'm like, yes, that is abundantly clear. I do not need you to tell me for a third time that he's fighting monsters to pay off his debt to the Yakuza. I understand. Around here, I realized that this is definitely my least favorite of these three shows so far. I personally just don't really like grimdark stuff, so I think maybe this one's just kind of not for me. Back at home, Denji says he's too hungry to sleep, which makes him think about money, which gives him worse insomnia. I don't know, this dude's life's terrible. His dream is just like having food and a house. He retches and coughs up a bunch of blood, but he says this is some kind of genetic thing, and supposedly this is how his mom died too. The Yakuza guy shows up and tells Denji he's got another demon for him to kill. So they go to this warehouse, and Denji's like kind of sus. He's like, are you sure there's a devil here? The Yakuza guy is like, you know we're grateful for your loyalty, right? But also you're a dumb piece of shit and I hate you. Then some weird like zombie comes up behind Denji and literally impales him and Pochita with a sword. Like fully just stabs them from back to front. The Yakuza guy says that they made a deal with devils to get demonic power. And we see that the old guy gets like taken over by this giant zombie monster thing. And this thing's, I guess, fully in charge now because now the monster is talking and not the Yakuza guy. The zombie leader says, I turned them into zombies since I am the zombie devil. And I'm like, yeah, I got it. You're the zombie devil. I saw the zombies. So the zombie devil is mad because the devil hunters hunt her kind, so she wants to kill Denji. He tries to run, but he's like bleeding out from the stab wound, and they just start stabbing the hell out of him. They're just slicing him up, cutting him up real bad. He's screaming. It got to be a little much for me. Eventually I was like, so Denji's just like gonna die, right? Like this dude's not surviving this. And then the next thing we see is Denji is in a dumpster, literally hacked to bits. They just fucked this guy up. Some of Denji's blood like trickles into Pochita's mouth, and he's got like some kind of brain blast. We see a flashback to Denji over-explaining how he'll probably get killed by a devil one day, and he's worried about what'll happen to Pochita. He says if he dies one day, and Pochita happens to be one of those devils that can fuse with a human after death, which is a thing apparently, then he should just go ahead and do that. But he says to wait until he's dead and buried so that the Yakuza don't come after him. And I guess being hacked to bits in a dumpster counts as a burial. The way Denji's talking about it kind of makes it seem like Pochita's just gonna like take over his body and Denji will just be dead. So Pochita can just kind of like go off and live his life like normal in Denji's body. But I kind of feel like that's not what's gonna happen. So back in the dumpster, Denji's just in pieces, and Pochita, like, grafts his body onto Denji's, like he's just sticking out of his chest. Then all of a sudden, some kind of weird barbed wire, like, appears between Denji's hacked limbs and just, like, pulls him back together from the inside. In some kind of dream dimension, Pochita says that there's a new contract, Denji gets his heart, and in return, Denji just shows Pochita his dreams. I don't know. So Denji wakes up and Pochita's gone. But his little chainsaw ripcord tail is just like sticking out of like a hole in Denji's chest. The zombie queen lady's like, are you still alive? I guess my zombie's gotta kill you again. And somehow Denji just automatically knows to pull the ripcord. A whole bunch of zombies just like pile on top of him. They seem like they're probably gobbling him up. But we hear a chainsaw noise from inside the pile. And Denji busts out with like a demon chainsaw head and chainsaw arms. Which I gotta admit is kind of cool. So this Denji Pochita fusion slices into the zombie queen's eye. He gets launched back, he's hacking up a bunch of zombies. At this point, the zombie queen is scared. She's like shitting her pants. And Denji runs up and just like cuts her in half. There's blood everywhere. So now that that thing's dead, the zombies are kind of just all standing around like they don't know what to do anymore. I noticed Denji's whole entire head appears to be CGI, which really does not look very good. Denji sort of goes crazy and just starts like maniacally hacking up all the zombies. I don't know what this Yakuza guy thought he was doing, because I'm pretty sure we see him in the crowd, and he's just like a zombie now. So, a whole lot of good this did you. Some chick shows up with some guys in suits. I don't know if they're Yakuza or what. Denji's just kind of like standing there, still amongst the bodies. The girl walks up. She can like smell that Denji's not a human or a devil. And then he like asks her for a hug. The demon mask thing kind of just like melts off of Denji. I don't know if that's something that this girl did. She says she's a public safety devil hunter and basically that she's here to kill Denji. And she offers him a deal which really isn't much of a choice, where she'll either kill him right here or take him in as her pet. And honestly, I get terrible vibes from this person. Everything she says here creeps me the hell out. She starts talking about food like she read Denji's mind and says that she has bread with jam, which he was specifically talking about earlier. But he's a simp, so I guess he's just stoked. He literally is like, oh, my dreams just came true. And the episode ends. Final thoughts? I did not like this show at all. I'll give it like a 4 out of 10. I didn't like the CGI animation. I really didn't like the voice acting. I don't like how grimdark it is. I didn't like the gore. I don't like the main character. I think he's whiny and annoying. I really didn't like any of the characters except kind of Pochita, and I guess he died. I don't know, man. This one's really not for me. Watch it or drop it? Drop it. I don't want to see more of that. Alright, what's next? That time I got reincarnated as a slime. So, I have to admit, I assumed this show would suck. From the first time I heard about this show, I did not think I would like it. But, I have heard about it, so it goes on the list. I also felt like I needed something like an isekai in here somewhere. So what do I know about this show? Like I said, I think it's an isekai. I mean, from the title, that's kind of what it sounds like. Also, like I mentioned, first time I heard about this, I thought it sounded incredibly stupid. Just in the interest of keeping it real. I kind of know what slimes are from like other media. It's like a little teardrop shaped goop creature. But I don't really know how that's gonna come into play here. I mean, from the title, you would think that the main character is a slime, but I kind of don't expect that there's just gonna be a little blob creature as the main character of this entire show. Alright, jumping into the show. It starts out with like a weird alchemical seal, and then we see like this scene that my best guess would be it's like a World War II firebombing campaign or something. There's just planes dropping bombs. We see a girl being dragged by, I guess, her mom, and then the mom just gets flattened and burned. Somebody shows up and does some kind of magic, and I was like, oh, she's rescuing the kid. And then the girl just gets, like, sucked up into a fire tornado and, like, I guess disintegrates. Then it says, we are in Tokyo, present day. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, we do not come back to this for the entire rest of the episode. I have no idea what that was. Your guess is as good as mine. So we see this guy who I initially thought might be like a Sasuke type, but then he started talking and I immediately realized this is no Sasuke. He's like a college-educated 37-year-old yuppie who's never had a girlfriend. And he's whining about that too. I really do not need to see another protagonist whining about how they don't have a girlfriend. He says, I'm kind of lacking in the girlfriend department. And dude, if this were up to me, I would have turned the show off right here. I'm sorry, anime fans, but what's going on with you guys? What's wrong with y'all? Is this just the writers, or like what is this? Why do we keep seeing this? So the main character is this guy Satoru. Two people that we never really get a lot of context for. I guess his friend and that guy's girlfriend show up. The guy asks Satoru to go to dinner with them. So they go, I guess, to get a meal. So while they're walking, we hear some screams from a crowd. And we see there's a guy who's just like full on sprinting through the crowd with a knife out, pointed forward. I have no idea why this man is doing this. So the guy's lined right up with Satoru's friend and is right about to stab him when Satoru jumps out, pushes him out of the way, and he gets stabbed instead. The guy that stabbed him just drops the knife and bails. Then there's this weird, like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like a weird cut to a disembodied robot voice talking about successful acquisitions of skills, like stab resistance. And I was like, I don't know, he doesn't look very stab resistant. He appears to be bleeding out. So this robot voice is like responding to the things that Satoru is complaining about while he's dying. Like he says something about losing a bunch of blood, and the robot voice is like, bet, creating a body that does not require blood. So I guess he's like getting downloaded into the isekai. He gets a whole bunch of skills like heat resistance, stab resistance. Some of the skills stack on other skills and create new skills. Satoru's like, damn, am I dying? And the first thing this dude says to his friend is, go destroy my hard drive. I get terrible vibes from this guy. What is on this single 37-year-old man's hard drive that's the first thing he's worried about while he lays dying in the street? The robot voice is like, I don't know what that means. Here's some electrical resistance. Satoru says some shit to his friend about how he hopes he has a happy life, and then he's like, and again, I can't stress this enough. Destroy that hard drive. Fill up the tub, throw it in there, burn it, whatever you gotta do. Right as he's dying, Satoru's like, damn, I'm gonna die a whack-ass virgin. He says in the next life he's gonna get tons of women, and the robot voice is like, predator, got it. What? He's just like rambling, and the computer is just giving him every skill it can think of. It gives him some skill called Sage. He tells the robot voice to shut up, so I guess he was also hearing that the whole time, but he wasn't like worried about what that was. He didn't think to be like, oh shit, I'm getting isekai'd. $1 million. I want $1 million. Laser vision. Time freezing. Super speed. Fucking just make me the Justice League. All those guys, give me all their thing. I mean, I guess he's a little busy bleeding out, so. So Satoru's just like in some kind of abyss dimension. He seems to like rematerialize somewhere else. We're seeing the world through his POV, and he just like tries to eat a plant, but he like dissolves the plant. Brings up his hard drive again. He's got like a quirked up little Ash Ketchum voice now that he's a slime. And I hated this, dude. I hate this slime's voice. I hate it. This version of Satoru is somehow even more fucking annoying. He goes, it appears I was reincarnated as a slime. Like, yeah, dude, I know. It's the name of the show. I was thinking it was interesting to make the main character a featureless orb, but I'm pretty sure they're going to change that. Satoru's surprisingly chill with this. Like, he's just like, oh, this body's way more streamlined. You're not concerned? So he just starts, like, eating more plants. The computer voice starts talking to him and dumping a bunch of info. I guess he can, like, eat things and mimic them like Kirby. He figures out he can craft potions and store them. It's a bunch of information I really don't need that they're over-explaining to me. He says, awesome sauce. And again, I wanted to turn this show off so bad. The slime is like narrating the show by talking directly to the audience, which would be probably fine, except he also makes a comment about it. He's like, who am I talking to? I'm like, dude, shut up. I find this thing so annoying. The robot encyclopedia thing that keeps talking to him, I guess, is part of whatever Great Sage ability he unlocked, so he starts calling it Great Sage. He finds and analyzes some magic ore, and like this just feels like the beginning of a video game. Like I'm just watching someone play an extremely boring tutorial of a video game. He eats a bunch of ore and is cringe some more. At one point he makes like a little face by like eyes bulging out of his slime body, which I kind of liked. He falls in some water, but he like gets out of it. Every time he does something, the Great Sage computer interrupts him to like tell us, the audience, I guess, and him that he's unlocked a new skill, and I also hate that. It says he can't feel pain, but he can take damage, which distinctly feels like a disadvantage. Suddenly some deep voice addresses the slime. We see this big like silhouette of what's pretty clearly a dragon. The deep voice says that it can bestow sight to the slime somehow, and he says he'll do it on two conditions: that the slime promise not to fear him, and that he agree to come back and see him sometimes. The dragon's like, I was just wondering if you wanted to hang out with me and smoke weed and drink soda and play Burnout Revenge for the PS2. I'm trying not to make this summary boring, but I feel like there's no not boring way to sum this up to you. So the dragon tells him he can use some skill called magic sense, where he can just like see with magic. Like a fucking nuke goes off in the slime's brain somehow, and all of a sudden he can see. Which he says about 47 times. The slime sees the dragon, which was obviously a dragon, and he's immediately terrified of it, which he promised not to be. The dragon says, I'm one of only 4 true dragons in this world. And I'm like, okay, so we got a side quest, I guess. The dragon points out that slimes are usually not intelligent, and he's like, oh, you must be unique. And the slime says, unique? I don't know what that means. Unique? You don't know what unique means? This guy's 37 and went to college. And the dragon is just like, it means special? Like, yeah. And the slime's like, oh yeah, maybe. I mean, I was a human who got stabbed to death this morning. Like, is that considered unusual? And the dragon goes, yes, I see you were reincarnated. And I was like, if this dude says as a slime, I am done. Like, did they think that we were going to be recovering from recent head trauma? Like, is this anime for people with head trauma? The dragon explains that coming into the world through reincarnation is pretty unusual. He says they call people from other worlds like that otherworlders. I wonder why. Maybe they should stop and explain to me why the people from other worlds are called otherworlders. So the dragon finally explains something that actually does need explaining, and he says that otherworlders gain special abilities based on their desires. So I was right. He could have literally just asked for whatever powers he wanted, I guess. He was just too busy bleeding out. The slime says he wants to go look for otherworlders, so I guess we've got a main quest. The dragon's like, oh, you're leaving? I guess I'll just drink all this soda and smoke all this weed by myself. So he feels guilty and he stays. Dragon tells him the story of how he got sealed in this cave that he's in. He says he accidentally burnt down an entire town. Somebody that people called a blessed hero showed up to, like, stop the dragon. She used some magic skills to seal the dragon. I assumed that this was one of those other worlders, but he says it was some kind of summon that was summoned by a whole bunch of other people. I genuinely don't know why they're telling me all of this. The slime is excited about mages and he's just more cringe about it. He complains about not having a girlfriend again. Then the slime hatches a crazy idea. He goes, that's it. What if you and I became friends? What the fuck? Is this a fucking show for preschoolers? What am I watching? Do adults enjoy this? Why am I watching this? The dragon's like, yeah, let's be friends. He's like, this slime dude is pretty annoying and kind of sucks, but I don't know anyone else and I'm stuck here, so I guess, yeah. The slime literally goes, anyway, that's the story of how I was stabbed, died, was reincarnated as a slime. I know! I was there. I watched it. Why are you telling me this? You're gonna recap this entire shitty episode that I just was forced to watch like it didn't suck the first time? He says something about his life now, and he goes, or should I call it a slife? And if that just ain't the cherry on top of this shit sandwich. He mentions his hard drive for the 100th time, and he says he hopes his friend doesn't look at what's on it. We see his friend in a bathroom with a tub full of water about to dump his whole computer into the water, which of course looks incredibly unsafe. He throws it in, it gets shocked. They have to put an actual disclaimer on the screen that says, do not ever do this. For God's sake, do not do this. Then why show it? The friend says that he'll name his son after Satoru, and I'm like, why? Kind of seemed like you barely knew that guy, and also, he sucks. At this point, I was like, oh wait, did we not get an intro? But they play the intro as an outro, and it's not that good. There's like some person with blue hair. I thought it was like a little girl, but I'm pretty sure that that person with blue hair in the intro is the slime. And there's like 100 characters that I've never seen. It literally looks like a completely different show from whatever the hell I just watched. So maybe it gets better. I can't see how it wouldn't. But what I just watched was absolutely garbage. There's a bunch of chicks with their boobies out in the intro. Honestly, whatever show that they're advertising in the intro here seems a lot more interesting than what I just watched. But I guess I'll never watch that show. So, final thoughts. I don't know, man. That show sucked. 1 out of 10. I hated it. It took me like 3 separate attempts to finish this one 20-minute long episode. The intro's not that good. Didn't do much for me. Watch it or drop it? Drop it. Throw it. Bury it. Throw it in the tub. Alright, solo leveling. What do I know about solo leveling? Nothing. It sounds kind of like an isekai, and when I googled it, the Google images all kind of reminded me of Dark Magician. Like, it was all purpley and cool. So I was like, cool, let's watch that. I did hear maybe that this episode is like a two-parter, so maybe we're not gonna get the full story here, but if so, oh well. Just the way she goes. It starts out with a flashback to something 3 years ago. There's some naval guys in a ship shooting at an island. They say that their weapons won't work against whatever it is they're shooting at. And then we cut away from that and we never see it again. So, we see like a giant ant. There's some guys in armor. The animation here is definitely quite interesting. I'm not totally sure if I like it, but it's definitely like striking. There's some like mages blasting fire. They're getting kind of wrecked by these ants. Somebody says something about them not being a high enough rank. So then some dude in like clearly high rank armor shows up and destroys one of the ants to save one of these guys. He heals him with magic like instantly. Another guy shows up and blasts some of the ants with lightning. A third guy shows up with huge muscles and just starts like brawling the ants. Somebody in the crowd tells us, the audience, that these are S rank hunters. Wow, good for them. There's like a big white ant that shows up. I don't know. I got really bored of this action very quickly. I don't know who any of these people are or why they're fighting these ants, and I really don't care. The S rank hunters seem to like digivolve or something and they get stronger. We see some douchebag in a white suit who says he's the guild master, and then we get a lore dump. They say more than a decade ago, a bunch of portals opened connecting our world to some other dimension, which allowed like a bunch of monsters, I guess, to come into our world. And somehow these monsters are immune to conventional weaponry. This is just like a straight up info dump of lore. They say somehow some humans awakened abilities to fight the monsters, and those people are known as the hunters. They have ranks based on how much magic they have, which apparently they can't improve, like it's just innate. Whatever rank you have is the rank you have. Oh, right. The thing with the ants was not 3 years later. That was on that island, I guess. But now we're 3 years later. Those ants were 3 years ago from whatever this is. There's like a portal at like a construction site or something. There's a bunch of guys who kind of just look like contractors and construction workers standing around. And I guess they're getting ready to do some kind of raid into that portal. Some little soft bitch boy shows up. They really make a point to say how much of a bitch this guy is and how much he sucks. He even overhears some of the people talking shit on him and he's just like, yeah, they're right, I do suck. The boy's name is Jinu. Some girl whose name I think is Juhi shows up and talks to the guy. At this point I realized that this show was not Japanese because I did not understand what these people's names were. So I looked it up and realized that it's Korean. So excuse me if I badly mispronounce their names. I'm a little bit more used to how Japanese works. We find out Jinu was hospitalized because he like got wrecked so bad because he sucks so much. But he's like pretty chill about it. All Jinu has is like a tiny little knife that he says has some magic in it. We see some like politicians or something, some guys in suits talking in an office. They say that hunting is like one of the most lucrative careers because they round up a bunch of treasure that they can sell. There's something called essence stones that are inside of these monsters, and I guess they're valuable. We see Gino actually gets one of these from one of the monsters, but then he almost gets killed by a goblin. He tries to fight back, and his little rinky-dink knife shatters, and he gets stabbed. The girl from before Juhi heals him. Apparently, essence stones are used to make weapons and armor that let them fight stronger monsters to get more essence stones, to make more armor, and so on. So basically, this is a video game. Why is every anime a video game now? The gameplay loop of a video game is not very interesting to watch as a show. That politician looking guy in the suit is still talking, and he explains how the government wants to use these stones as a power source. It's honestly like a pretty cliche trope he's going on about here. It's some kind of ideal clean energy, but scientists haven't actually figured out how to use it yet. But I guess the government is like somehow invested in this whole situation. So the Raiders win, but the kid was pretty much useless. In fact, he was actually probably worse than useless because the girl Juhi had to spend her entire raid healing him instead of doing something more useful. They also mentioned something called mono crystals, which I guess are different from the essence stones in some way, but I feel like it's really not important. They're both kind of just like magical items. The guys are complaining that the rewards from the raid are like super weak when they find a tunnel leading deeper into the dungeon. Apparently, they're supposed to report this to like the Hunters Association, but the guys are worried that they'll miss out on all the loot if they do that, so they take a vote on whether or not to go deeper into the dungeon. Apparently, this is pretty dangerous, so the vote ends in a tie, and it's up to Genu to cast the tie breaking vote. We find out that his dad is missing, his mom has some kind of hospital bills, and his sister is in college and needs help with tuition. So this guy's got a lot on his plate. He says he needs money to help his family, so he votes that they should go deeper into the dungeon. In some lab somewhere, we see a guy touch some orb. Then we hear another guy in a suit talking about how they're recruiting for the Hunters Association. In another other location, some lady stops a purse snatcher on a motorcycle. At this point, it feels like too many characters. They say that she's also one of those S rank hunters. Well, congratulations. She does like some parkour out of there, and then I don't think we see her again the whole episode. Back in the dungeon, they're trekking deeper. The girl Juhi is mad at Genu because she like pretty much has to be his mom. I've kind of been waiting for the main character to complain about not getting girls like every other main character has. But Juhi actually asks him to take her to dinner. So way to go, we're subverting the trope a little bit for once. Genu's kind of surprised. It seems like he doesn't really know what to say, but they get interrupted anyway by them finding the lair, which is like this big, creepy, ornate, engraved door. Back at whatever science lab that was, I guess, we see the suit guy that was giving us the lore dump about the essence crystals. He's in like a recorded training video talking to a group of people about the Hunters Association. The kid that touched whatever that orb thing was, I think, is there watching the video. Back in the dungeon, they go inside and it looks pretty crazy in there. It's like this giant blue room full of giant statues that immediately looks like somewhere that they have no business being. There's like a weird summoning circle on the ground. One of the giant statues is holding a huge stone tablet. One of the guys starts reading some nonsense off of it. And Juhi tells Genu that she saw one of the statue's eyes move. Right then, that giant creepy door shuts behind them, locking them in the room. Some big husky guy starts storming towards the door. He's like, "See, this is what we get." And I was like, so this guy's definitely about to get killed, right? And yep, one of the giant statues just like smashes the dude with a huge axe. Just like slices him right open. Everyone in the room is like, "What? I thought this was a D rank dungeon." It's like, yeah, that's why you weren't supposed to go deeper. Like, that's probably definitely why they had that rule you all took a vote about not listening to. The statue Juhi was talking about looks at Genu, just like she said, and it cuts to like a narration from Genu. He says since he's like constantly trying not to die and like fighting for his life for survival, that he manages to survive by waiting for opportunities. He says he's like always facing death. He's broke, so he's got like no good weapons or equipment. It shows like all of his toes are sticking out of his shoes. This dude's broke as hell. But he says he survived by waiting for opportunities, which is apparently what kept him alive when we see back in the blue room, one of those giant statues shoots like a Superman laser beam out of its eyes and just tears through the room. It fucking like disintegrates a couple of the guys, like that scene in Terminator 2. Genu jumps just in time to save Juhi from getting disintegrated. Genu's like in shock, and he says, "We're all gonna die." And the episode ends. Well, how's old Genu gonna get out of this one? I guess we'll never know. Video's over, turn it off. Just kidding. But yeah, I'm kind of curious. Genuinely, I would like to know how he gets out of this because right now, dude seems kind of screwed. So, final thoughts. The first large portion of this episode really wasn't doing it for me. It started out with a bunch of characters I did not know or care about, and then they spent a lot of time like dumping too much information on me. But once we started following Genu, the story got pretty cool pretty fast. The cliffhanger ending makes me want to know what happens, but I will say there was plenty they could have taken out of this episode and then just not done a cliffhanger. But, whatever. The animation for this show was pretty cool. That eye laser beam from that statue looked awesome. I don't remember there being an intro for this one. I guess we didn't see it. I will say though, I think there's an outro for this episode, and it kind of sucked. It was kind of like some K-pop shit. Not for me. So yeah, I don't know. First portion of the episode was pretty weak, but the last part was pretty cool, so I think it kind of made up for it. I guess I'll give it like a 5 out of 10. We'll give it a 6 out of 10, because I am curious what happens to Genu. So watch it or drop it. You know what? Watch it. I think I probably actually am gonna watch it. I want to watch more Dandadan first. That's the one I'm like most curious to watch more of. But I do want to know how this plays out. All right. There you have it. 5 anime, 5 overrated, terrible, garbage shows. Just kidding. Jujutsu Kaisen and Dandadan were definitely my favorites. I actually liked those. Solo leveling seems to have a lot of potential. I'm not totally sure what it'll be like going forward, but I think I might like it. Reincarnated as a slime, that show sucked. Like I said, I think maybe it turns into just a different show after the first episode, but honestly, I don't care. I'm not curious. Chainsaw Man, too grimdark, not for me. After the first two I reviewed, JJK and Dandadan, were both pretty good, I started to get kind of worried that they were all going to be good and I just wasn't going to have anything to shit on. But then I started watching Chainsaw Man and I got worried about the opposite, that I wasn't going to like any of the rest of them. Which kind of almost happened, but Solo Leveling like pulled it together at the end. Overall, I'd say watching these shows made me pretty optimistic about anime in general right now. I'm pretty excited to check out some more of some of these shows, and now I'm kind of curious if there's more shows out there I might like. As someone who's considered myself like an anime fan for most of my life, but has mostly fallen off of it, I'm pretty stoked to find a couple of shows that I want to see more of. So I'll let you know if I end up getting really into one of these, maybe I'll make another video about it. If you want to hear me talk about any of these shows more, or you have any other shows you want to hear me talk about, let me know. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, comment, all that. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.